Hello, this is Nicole with Know It's Crochet, and we are here for another yarn review. Today we're going to be focusing on a higher end yarn, and that is the Juniper Moon Farm Summer Solstice Paints. Now, the Summer Solstice comes in more solid colors. This one is the paints, and this colorway is called Sizzling Summers 104, and it's just really, really incredible. I mean, if we pull that down, look, that purple raspberry, oh, it's so lovely. And then there's a little bit of a kind of a brownish in there. Now, as I do this workup, I'm not going to get like the true effect, but I am working on a project right now using this yarn, so hopefully I will have that done before I finish this, and at the very least, I can throw up a screenshot of what that looks like and give you some final thoughts. Maybe. Depends on when I actually get this recorded. So, this is the Summer Solstice Paints. What am I guessing? This is a linen, cotton, viscose, polyester blend, with the majority of it being 48% linen, 24% cotton. So because there is a linen base, this definitely has that very organic, toothy kind of feel to it that is supposed to soften up significantly with more and more wear. We're going to see how that works out because I have been using it. It does have a little bit of a toothy feel. It's not unpleasant. It's not, to me, it's different than like a really scratchy acrylic or really itchy wool. It is not the softest to use, but it's not that big a deal. Okay, so what am I going to guess this rates? Okay. Knowing what I already know about this, as far as like colors and price and that kind of thing, I'm gonna have to put it on a little bit of a lower end and say this is gonna score, we're gonna say a 3.6. And I'm really learning that sometimes the low scores do not mean that I would not buy the yarn again. I am going to put this at a 3.6, and we'll see how it does. I won't be surprised if I'm pretty close to that, or even maybe on the high side. You let me know what you think. Put your comment below with the score that you're going to guess this is, and let's see how this works up. Hello, 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 and we are here to do our swatch and review of the Summer Solstice Paints. Now, the Summer Solstice also comes in solid colors, and this is a luxurious linen and cotton tweed. So it comes with 48% linen, 24% cotton, 24% viscose, and 4% polyester. And I have got to tell you, these colors are just stunning. I'm actually working on a project right now that towards the end, I will pull that out and show you what I have so far. It's not done, but I want you to kind of see what it looks like as a bigger swatch, a really big swatch. We'll see it. It's gorgeous. All right, let's get into this. And get started with our single crochet. Now, I've already done up the double crochet, so we'll review that and take a look, but this is the single crochet, and because I was working on a project already and I switched skeins, I wanted the color to be the same, so I have a little bit of extra left over, and we're going to use that. And I am going to use my 4mm crochet hook for this. I just got this hook. I lost my other one, so I just bought this one and I'm testing it out. So far, I'm actually pretty decently impressed. Don't mind it at all. And this yarn is one of those luxury yarns that you can buy either at a local yarn store or at some of the higher end online stores like Lovecrafts. I mean, Lovecrafts, I hate to call it a higher end store because they sell a very wide range of yarns. And so you can get everything from like the Lion brand to the Juniper Moon Farm. If you're not familiar with Juniper Moon Farm, it is a lovely brand. It started out as a small local farm, textile. What do you call those? The makers of the yarns. Uh, she raised goats and sheep and turned those into some lovely yarns, and has since grown the name and the brand so that they're more commercially based now, but they still have very much that small sort of company feel to it, and I love that about their products. I have used a couple of their products. They are not your traditional go-tos for most of us crocheters, in that they're on the pricier end, and they just tend to be a little bit more knit oriented than crochet oriented. That certainly does not mean we cannot crochet with these items. It just means that we are going to find them more for knitters in the reviews and all that kind of good stuff. Now, this particular yarn on Ravelry is not really popular. It for the solids of this particular brand, there were 827 projects. For the paints, there were only 110 projects. And most of those were definitely on the knitting side. So it's just something to keep in mind that it's definitely a more limited kind of item. Plus, I don't know how many people really like to work with a linen yarn because it has that very rough, very earthy texture to it that only softens up with time. So you have to kind of put in that due diligence and understand that sometimes it's going to be a little bit more rough. And in fact, oops, get in there. I went out and purchased a yarn guide to help me a little bit because that roughness running over my finger right here would really start to irritate. I don't have a tension that causes that. It's just, I think, the way I hold my yarn. So I end up getting this little line. So let me show you what I got. And just a little bonus tip here. I got this little yarn guide, and I got this from Hobby Lobby. You can get them online for, well, when I found it, it was 99 cents. In store, it was like $1.79. But from Michael's, they were closer to like $6, or Amazon was like $6. So it just kind of keeps that yarn from dragging on my finger and causing that interesting little line that I would otherwise get. So good to know. It's called a yarn finger guide. If you want to go out and Google those and find one, or I will link to the one on Amazon down below so you can easily find that and then compare it. The reviews for this yarn, even though there were not a lot of them, were very good reviews. So we had 4.4, whoops. It takes a little getting used to when you're using these guides. I lose the yarn sometimes if I'm not holding the tension in there a little bit tighter, because then it kind of, the yarn gets away from me. It just takes practice. Reviews, yes, that's where we were. The reviews were 4.4 with 147 on Ravelry for the solids, and for the paints, it was, oops, I'm getting distracted here. This yarn review is not turning out very professional. Nope, I think I did that one already. Okay, there we go. You know what? I promise I have not had anything to imbibe as I'm doing this. I'm just, I don't know. As I'm working on the project, the bigger project, I'm definitely not struggling with this yarn. I could see how somebody might struggle with it because it is very, I mean, linen based is the only thing I can say. It has more of that almost straw-like texture to it, and sometimes that straw can kind of split. I have not noticed that many splits, but I probably would say that, you know, there is a tendency to get some splitting if you're not careful with it. The paint, I think and you'll see when I show you the full project of it, it is a very lovely transition. Instead of like a lot of the inexpensive yarns, they'll have different paints, kind of, you know, different colors, but it is not a transitional paint. It is very abrupt. It goes from one color and then it goes to the next color. The design of this is very subtle, very graceful in the transition, and it makes it very, very lovely. So I'm curious, have you ever used a linen yarn? And if you did, what did you think of it overall? Was it like just, ugh, not a pleasant experience for you? Or was it just fine and you love the end result? Did you wash it a few times and get it to soften up so that it's a lovely wearable kind of item? Or did it stay stiff and too, you know, too earthy, too natural kind of farm? That's what I think of, is I kind of think of grass when I think of linen. The dead grass, I hate to say it that way, but it's the straw-like grass that kind of accumulates, and it's a little bit rough around the edges and almost feels brittle. So, I mean, you know, there is that kind of concern. When you first feel it, you would not pick this up and say, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing to work with. All right. I feel like I've done extra rows. We're going to call it there because I feel like I've done one extra row on that, and we're going to be good to go. One thing I did not check as we got started is the gauge. So let's go ahead and gauge this. Now this is a little bit of a thick and thin. I don't think it was designed that way intentionally, but there are areas where, as it was spun, some of the areas are a little bit thicker. And this says it's a DK. The thinner areas, I would say, are a sport weight. Now it is labeled as a sport weight, fine. So just kind of keep that in mind, that even though it lists as a sport weight, there are some areas that's going to be a little bit more chunky. Now here is our double swatch. And you can see, I mean, these kind of come from similar areas of the skein there. So you can see a little bit more of that almost teal-like kind of color coming in, silvery looking, and it looks very, very pretty, I think. You can see how subtle that fade is from one color into another. I just think it's very lovely. All right, let's pull this scorecard up. And if you recall, I guessed that this is going to score 3.6. Let me know what you think it's going to score. This is your last chance as we do up our numbers. And remember, my numbers might vary from yours, so go ahead and do your own scoring alongside of mine and see what you get. Waitlisted is a sport, and I would say it is a sport to DK. There are definitely some areas where it's closer to that DK. Fiber content, this is a 5 all day long. That linen cotton blend is just top tier. Now feel, I mean, let's be honest here. It is not that comfortable feel. It is definitely on the rough side, but I am going to give it a couple of bonus points down here because that linen is going to soften up. It is even softer in my swatch that I have washed a couple of times versus in the original that hasn't been washed yet. And what I've actually noticed as I work with this, even on my bigger project, you'll see as I'm working with it and I'm feeling sections down below that have been worked already, it feels softer than the section that I'm working. So just a little bit of friction makes this soften up with time. So I'm going to give that 2 bonus points because that's a pretty big factor there. Now, unfortunately, even if we include the paint or the solids, there are not a lot of color options. So even in the solids, there are only about 12 colors available. In the paints, there are only 6. So we're going to give that a 1.5 because it just helps me to fudge the fact that the solids, there's a little bit extra choices there. Splitting, again, I mean, there's certainly some potential because this is a very natural type fiber. I'm going to go ahead and give it we'll give it a 4. Because on the actual swatches, I didn't get a lot of splits. It was just as I was working with it, I noticed it had the tendency. Stitch definition, because this has that thick and thin texture, there are going to be areas where that stitch definition gets a little bit muted and is very hard to see. I'm going to give it a 4. No, we'll give it a 3. Let's be fair here. Let's give it a 3. Now, drape. Linen is also one of those, it's famous for it as it softens up, it gets more drapey. I mean, this is a decent drape. I wouldn't say it was like astounding. The double crochet certainly is very, very nice and drapey. And the project I'm working on is very drapey. I'm going to give it a 4 and then give it another bonus point down here because, again, it's not as drapey as it would be, but I know it's going to soften up. All right, let's try the frogging. Now, I got to tell you, I've actually frogged this quite a bit. And yeah, it's got a little bit of that snug tug, but it's not bad. So we're going to give that a 4. Washability, yeah, this is a linen and it is recommended to be hand washed, lay flat to dry. So that's just part of the kind of nature. We have to expect that on these nicer ends of yarn. So we're going to give that the 2. Eesh, this might be one of the more expensive yarns that I've rated. Not maybe, it's close. It falls in the mid-range at 8 cents per yard, so it's just over the edge. 7 cents is kind of that break even for the mid-range. This is 8 cents a yard, so we're going to put that in with the 3 mid-range. Now, are there any warnings? I have not found any color bleeding whatsoever. I haven't found anything that isn't accounted for in this. It is a fun yarn. I love the colors. I mean, even, I gotta show you, it doesn't look as impressive here as it does in the project, but I'm gonna show you the project and get your vote, but only after I score this. So let's do the scoring. Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. I'm a little bit low on this. It came in at 31.5 for a total of 3.5 granny squares. And I mean, the color range, if you take that out, that has a significant difference in factoring it. And then, of course, the feel and the washability. So, I mean, if we just deduct the color range, that score goes up quite a bit. And that offsets the issue there. Would I buy this yarn again? 100% I would, if I had the right project. It is definitely not going to be a go-to yarn for me that I'm going to buy over and over again and keep it in stock. But if I find the right project that calls for these colors, then I would definitely buy this yarn again and make something with it. Let me know what you think, and I am going to get my other project, clear the table off here. Now, as I'm laying this out, this project is a recreation of a knit project. So there's no pattern for this at this point in time. Oops, I have that backwards. Yep. Not that it matters for you guys, because I'm really just trying to show you the color. There you can see some of the loveliness that is this color and how it changes. So you can see this color right in here is starting to repeat up here again. So we've got the pinks, and it kind of goes all the way up. You got a little bit of tan here into the green and the teal kind of silver. And this right here is the colorway from the swatch that I just dropped on the ground. So it's staying there. And of course, this project is going to, best be served with some decent blocking for sure. But look at that colorway. Isn't that gorgeous? I think it's lovely. Let me know what you think. And if you want more information on this project and what's going on with this, then I will link to the WIPs video where I talk a little bit more about it, so you can learn a little bit more about it too. Thanks so much, and will join me next week for another Crochet Swatch Saturday. Farrah, frog us out of here.